Now, for over a decade, Toyota has been a dominant player in the mid-size premium SUV segment in India with the Toyota Fortuner. However, the current generation arrived a while back, so it started to feel a little behind in terms of many aspects in light of the competition that sprung up. Now this is the brand new updated Fortuner, which promises a refreshed look, a few new bells and whistles, but more importantly, a lot more power under the bonnet. But Toyota is asking for an eye-watering 37 lakh rupees ex-showroom for this top-spec diesel automatic. So today we're going to find out if the Fortuner can rightfully demand it. The visual updates are subtle but make as big of an impact as the Fortuner brand itself. It includes a pair of reprofiled and more elegant LED headlamps, a new revised front grille, and a new muscular bumper that now features these long turn indicators as well. In profile, it is fairly the same as before, but with a new set of 18-inch alloy wheels. At the back, apart from the revised LED tail lamps, there's nothing significant new to report. Now the cabin is quite familiar to the older model, but there are a few new touches of course. The old 4 rosewood trim has thankfully been replaced with this 4 ashwood inlays. You get ventilated seats at the front, which is great and works well. You now get a bigger 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system. The OS is quite nice and it does what it's supposed to do. It's easy to read, but the touch response could have been better. Also, the OS, one would argue that it is a little old-fashioned, but all of that can be bypassed and completely overlooked because the Fortuner finally gets Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The new JBL speakers also sound brilliant, crisp, and audiophiles will love the fact that it comes with a subwoofer. The instrument cluster has been revised to look a touch more elegant with the blue tones, but it evidently is an evolution of the older model. Now the fit and finish of the cabin is very nice, as you would expect from a Toyota and from what we've known from the Fortuner. However, some plastic in the cabin, for example, these areas are very scratchy plastics, and for the asking price, in my opinion, I think that leaves area for improvement. The seat comfort is comparable to the old model as not much has changed with the seats themselves or the vehicle's dimensions. You get decent legroom and knee room in the second row. Headroom as well is quite decent for the average sized Indian population. Climbing into the third row requires some effort, but once you're in, you have a comparable amount of space. It doesn't feel as cramped as much as you would find in other 3-row vehicles. However, it's best only for short journeys. The third row seats, in comfort and space, are only second to the MG Gloucester in my opinion. But proof is in the pudding, so time to get behind the wheel and put the Fortuner through its paces. The very first thing you notice when you push this button is the work that has gone towards refinement in this car. Now the startup is smooth and it idles under 1000 RPM. What you notice is how much they have gone and worked on the engine to refine it even further than it was before. It is the same 2.8 litre turbo diesel engine, and thankfully that old diesel clatter and the gravelly sound is missing. Toyota has worked tirelessly inside the engine bay, and the new Fortuner feels a lot more refined. Additionally, in its new BS6 state of tune, with a bigger turbo, it offers 204 bhp and 500 Nm of torque, which is a noticeable improvement from the older spec. You can definitely feel the added performance from behind the wheel. The surge of torque kicks in as low as 1600 RPM and it pulls you comfortably. Stick it into sport and you can feel the engine breathe more freely. Now, thankfully, Eco, Normal and Sport have their own dedicated buttons. Earlier, you just got Eco, Sport and nothing. Now, the added power makes it easier to drive, and overtaking on the highway or driving in mountainous roads is much more relaxed than before. Of course, as the revs begin to climb up, the engine does get a bit noisy, but not to the extent as it bothers you any longer. The new Fortuner offers a vast improvement in refinement. Now, you can have this engine with a manual transmission, but with the one we're driving right now is equipped with the automatic with the selectable 4x4 with a low range gearbox. What's new is that you also get a rear diff lock, and that helps off road, and that means that the Fortuner is even more capable than before. Now, the transmission is relaxed, it does its job how it's supposed to. The kickdown is also quite decent under normal driving. However, even in sport, the response after the paddle shift clicks could have been a little quicker. Now, being an old school SUV with a body on frame design, the big chunky tires, the ride isn't the best. Although Toyota has worked on the suspension, you feel a lot of the bumps on the road and you bounce around a bit. It is a lot more prominent in the rear, of course. The ride as well leaves room for improvement. Additionally, being a heavy SUV, the body roll is a natural trait of such a vehicle. Throw it into a corner and you do feel the vehicle swaying around on the left to right, from side to side. At high speeds on the highway, it can rob you of some confidence. But in everyday city conditions, it probably wouldn't bother you as much. The steering, however, is still a little heavy, at slow speeds especially, which can be a little difficult to drive for some people. But of course, on the move it gets easier. How I still feel it could have been much lighter, especially compared to the competition. Overall, you can enjoy a drive in the Fortuner. It isn't by any means a bad car to drive. In fact, with the added power and refinement, the driving experience is enhanced. Of course, the Fortuner has proved its might in the past off road. We ventured out into the woods for some light off roading where we realized that the suspension does its job well and the updates to the engine help you keep momentum on loose surface. The new Fortuner might now be a touch more capable than before. Of course, we didn't push it to its limits this time. We might try that later in a showdown against its rivals. Coming back to the initial question, the price tag does seem quite steep for what the Fortuner has in its bag. While it has improved immensely in many aspects, there is still room for improvement if I'm honest. You could save yourself a little money and go for the Legender model, which offers a few more features and a sharper, sportier styling, but it does drop the 4x4. Now, the competition could buy advertising space, they could spend money on the development and whatnot. But one thing nobody can buy, and that is trust. And that is where the Fortuner, and Toyota for a matter of fact, basks in the glory of. Of course, there have been some shortcomings in its history, but largely the Fortuner has been reliable and dependable. And it's easy on the pocket to maintain and keep running and running and running and running. But tell me what you think. Do you think that the Fortuner is still the king? Or it's time to dethrone it and make way for a new order? Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe, like, and all that stuff, and I'll see you next time.